Hello to my fellow guitar minions. I just got done watching Despicable Me, so I have minions running around in my head all day. But I'm David Clayton with guitarBreakdown.com, and today we're going to go over a real quick lick. This is a lick based on a little improv that a guy named Rick Graham did on a video, and I will put the link below as always with the time code where this lick happens. Now, this is it's a pretty easy concept to get a hold of, but the technique takes a little work. So take it really slow with a metronome and everything, and you'll eventually get it worked out. And we'll go over note for note what's going on. But it's a very useful technique and lick. And if you're not familiar with Rick Graham, he's an amazing guitar player who I actually learned about a few years ago when I saw a video on YouTube where Rick and Tom Quayle were jamming together and they were just improvising over chord changes. And then I realized every few weeks they posted a new video where they just jammed together on a different backing track. And that's how I got introduced to both of them. And Rick has taken off into the stratosphere with his technique and his mixing of legato, hybrid picking, and alternate picking. And his technique's just so amazing. And the great thing about him is a lot of players' technique takes over from musicianship. So what I mean by that is a lot of people are amazing technicians, but they have a hard time finding how to be musical with all that technique. And Rick doesn't have that problem. Rick is he comes up with really cool melodies, really cool motifs, and he intertwines them all, and then he throws in these terrifying licks. So I will put the link to the video of where he's actually playing this little lick, and it's actually a video where he's just showing you how he warms up, and his warm-up is, don't let it discourage you, but it's better than most of our normal playing, myself included. I mean, he's just an amazing player. But I will put a link below in the description to the video where he plays this lick and a time code so you could see him actually play it. And as far as what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly go through the lick, break it down note for note, and then we'll talk a little about the concept and the technique, and then you'll be on your way to having this in your bag of tricks. Also below in the description there's a few links to guitarbreakdown.com. There's a bunch of stuff going on over there, free lessons and stuff, and there's a link to the Alan Hines lesson package. If you're into this legato mixed with hybrid picking kind of technique, you're going to want to check out this package because Alan does a ton of that. A little more in the fusion blues kind of thing, but it's amazing, and he goes through a ton of technique, licks, and all this kind of stuff, so you want to check that out. With all that said, let's get to the lesson. Alright, and two things I just want to mention real quick before we get into the lesson. I want to run down the gear that I'm running through real quickly because we get a ton of gear questions, so I want to try and start clearing that up in every one of these videos before, because we're getting a ton of questions and it's just hard to answer all the questions. And then also, real quick, we just shot a series of videos last night that are amazing. It's a guy named Michael Lawler, and he graduated from GIT. He used to be one of my first instructor kind of co-teachers at a music store we used to teach at when I was going through music school. And this guy is an amazing player. He just opened up for Holdsworth in New York probably 6 months ago or so. He opened up for 2 shows, I think. And he's just a smoking player, and if you like this kind of style of playing where there's a lot of legato, a lot of hybrid picking, rock, fusion, jazz mixed with some country, I mean, the guy's just amazing. You guys are going to really love it. And we're going to do a whole lesson series, another package with him. He was just one of my biggest inspirations growing up, and you're going to really dig it. So keep a lookout for that. Second, let's real quick go through the gear. I'm going through my Sir guitar. I'm going into a bunch of boost pedals with no real gains put on, but the reason why I'm getting gain out of this is because all these boost pedals are hammering the front end of this amp to, you know, really get that overdrive. I'm running through a Marshall 1-watt JTM 50th anniversary head. Amazing bass clean tone, and then when you push it with some pedals, it just sounds awesome. So I'm going through an RC booster into an EP booster by Exotic Effect, both of those. Going into a Maxon SD9, which is an overdrive distortion pedal, but I have everything turned off pretty much except for the level, the volume. So it's just another boost kind of thing, and it's got a different tone to it a little bit. That's going into another EP boost by Exotic Effects with the dip switch switched differently. So there's one in front of the distortion, one in back of the distortion. Goes into a Strymon Blue Sky reverb, into an analog delay by Maxon, and again into the Marshall 1-watt JTM, into a Bogner 112 Celestion filled cabinet. And that's the rundown, and sorry to waste all that time on that, but I just had to touch base with that. So now let's get to the lesson. Alright, so let's walk through note for note what's going on here, and then we'll get back to a little of the concepts and techniques that are going on. So basically you're bending from the 14th fret on the B string up a whole step, so you're bending from, right? But he's doing it in a really cool way where he just hammers on the note and lets it breathe for a minute, and then he kind of bends it up even a little more at the very end, and then he cuts the note off. So you have, so with distortion it's, and you can even try doing, you know, bending it up, down, and then up again to get that little, cool little, really aggressive bend. So you have, and you're gradually going into it. Whatever you want to do, it's just, you're just bending that note up a whole step, basically. And then what he does here is he just comes down an arpeggio from the 11th fret of the E string, 12th fret of the B string, and the 13th fret of both the G and D string. So you have, so it's, and it's kind of like maybe a quarter note and then a triplet, if you think of it in these terms. So it's triplet, bop, triplet. So you have, and then he goes down from the 11th fret to the 10th fret on the G string. So you have, and then he goes down to the 11th fret on the D string. So the whole thing again is, and then he pivots off that 10th fret, or 11th fret, I'm sorry, of the D string back up to the 13th fret of the G string. So you see this kind of, so again the whole thing. Then he just walks up what really is kind of like a dominant 7 arpeggio. So you have the, if you're thinking of it in C sharp as your root, you have the, you're starting on the 7th, which is the B note on the D string 9th fret. So you go 9, 11 on that string, which brings you from the flat 7 to the root. Then you go to the major 3rd on the G string, which is the 10th fret. So far you have, and then he just walks up 3 notes on the B string from the 9, 11 to 12. So you have, then he just goes from the 9th to the 11th on the E string, back down to the 12th fret of the B string. So that whole walk up is. Then he goes back to that 9th fret on the E string. And then he just does this chromatic trill from the 11, 12, 13, pull back off to 12, 11, 9. So it's basically 9, 11, 12, 13, and then you pull all those notes off again. So the whole thing is. All right, one more time. And then when he does this, he just actually comes down that arpeggio. So this is just your dominant 7 arpeggio. Right? Then he starts, then as he continues down, he ends up sliding some notes. So. And then, so what he does there is that after he comes down the root and the flat 7 on the D string, he goes down kind of like pentatonics from, again, the 11th fret to the 9th fret on the A string. Then he slides down a half step, which would be the major third. So you're sliding from the 9th fret to the 8th fret on the D string. So it's 11, 9, slide to 8. And then he goes down to the root, which is the 9th fret of the E string. Then he pivots back up to the 5th interval of C, which is the 11th fret of the A string. So you go. So that whole thing real quick is. And then after he goes to that, back to the 5th interval on the D string, 11th fret, he skips down to the flat 7 of C, which is the 7th fret, the B note on the E string. And then he just slides from that root to the 9th twice, which is the 9th fret, slide to the 11th twice. And then he ends on the root note. So again, real slow, it goes like this.